Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Howdy, friends, and welcome to the Ted Lasso Recap Podcast. I'm your host, Ray Taylor, and I'm thrilled to be here with y'all today. Now, folks, if you're like me, you can't get enough of Ted and the gang over at AFC Richmond, but that's why I'm here. I dive deep into every episode of this wonderful show and share my thoughts and insights with all you lovely folks out there. We're going to laugh, we're going to cry, and we're going to have a heck of a good time doing it. So grab your biscuits, settle in, and let's start, shall we? With this episode, Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episode 7, The Strings That Bind Us. This episode aired April 26th, 2023, directed by Matt Lipsey. In this episode, we have some bigotry and hate invade the show. But like all good sports fiction, positivity prevails. Sam's dad is visiting, and he's excited to show him. Sam is excited to show him his restaurant. Ted introduces the team to what he came up with last episode, known as Total Football, and intends on them playing with this new style in their next game at the end of the week. Nate begins to be himself in stressful moments. We are seeing the evolution of Nate. We are seeing that what I feel to be a redemption moment for Nate starting to take place. We also get to meet Nate's family, his sister, his parents. So we kind of got them a little bit in during their anniversary. But we get to see more of them in this episode. Keely and Jack progress in their relationship, and that is starting to remind Rebecca of her relationship with Rupert. Jamie, at one point, almost gets his dick ripped off, I should say. Roy is nailing the puns in this episode, regretfully to himself. He's nailing these puns. Higgins gets drenched by hot tea, and Trent gets absolutely giddy in this episode. So let's get it started, shall we? The businesses, this episode starts with this. So this episode basically is like through the week leading up to the next Richmond game. So every once in a while, we get the little opening montage for the start of the day in the town of Richmond, where we see businesses opening up. You see Jamie on a run with Roy, who's on a bike, like he's towing Roy. He's got a rope tied around him, tied to a bike, and Roy's on the bike. You have Nate walking by his parents' favorite restaurant to kind of wave to Jade, say hello to Jade, and she kind of acts confused and points to another one of her coworkers, like, are you talking to him? He's like, no, I'm talking to you, right? So we're seeing that clearly Nate and Jade, he's got a thing for her after she kind of filled in after his date bounced on him. And then she kind of goes back to her blank expression, cleaning the menus as she tends to do at the restaurant. And cut to Keely and Jack. They're having their morning coffee, and Jack gives Keely gives her a gift. She's giving her gifts throughout this whole episode, and this first gift that she gives her is a signed first edition of the book Sense and Sensibility. Right, this book is super old, weathered, and Jack wrote inside, personalizing it to Keely. It's got the author's signature in it, but Jack wrote in it, basically making sure that Keely can't sell it. And her excuse is she mentions that she gets really jealous and doesn't want her regifting it. So, red flag number one for Jack, in my opinion. I don't know where this is going to go, but I started noticing just little things that are, with Jack, little things she said. Somebody says they're really jealous. That's a sign. That's one red flag. Usually people will tell you, like, they will express their red flags and do it in a very casual way. So you got to really be attentive when people are telling you their red flags. And I don't know if this is going to come to anything, but she's really jealous, so she didn't want her regifting it. That's why she personalized it to her. Right? And I think, like, if I had to predict, right, just based on this one red flag as this episode starts, my prediction, one of my many predictions, is that Keeley is going to be, in addition to Nate, Keeley is going to be back at Richmond, right? I don't know what's going to happen necessarily, but if this red flag situation with Jack turns into something, and Jack is the reason why Keeley has her business, if there's an issue between them, especially if Jack is a jealous person and possessive person and maybe flies off the handlebars at some point, I could see her shutting down Keeley's business, thus forcing Keeley to go back to Richmond. So potentially this could be the start of Keeley, my prediction of Keeley going back to Richmond to kind of fulfill the prophecy that Ted's kid bestowed upon us in the beginning of this episode, building the stadium of Legos and having all of the people back in Richmond lined up with the trophy. I think that is going to be how this season ends. So we'll see. Cut to Sam showing up to his restaurant, and he goes to the manager and tells her that asks her if there's a table available for a special guest, which we find out is his dad, coming in on Friday. And she laughs at him and tells him that they're booked out for months, right? Which, good news. Sam's restaurant's doing well. Their reservations are booked for months in advance. So very well, I'm happy for Sam and his restaurant. And of course she says that she will make it work. Right. And then Sam, because his dad's coming, wants everything to be perfect, right? And he's kind of criticizing the silverware, how it doesn't match perfectly. And the chef is like, listen, if the food's good, it doesn't matter. People won't care. And then he hears the chef yelling in the kitchen, right? And Sam goes to check on it. And you find out the chef is angry that one of their politicians is turning refugees, or is planning to turn away refugees that are coming. And she's not happy with it, right? People are fleeing from disaster or tragedy, and because they are not from the UK, because they have an excess of melanin in their skin, they're being turned away, right? So the chef is Simi is very not happy with that. And she makes a comment that hopefully the politicians will let Sam's dad in from Nigeria, right? And then she throws down the newspaper, and the newspaper also mentions, like on the articles of this newspaper, in addition to this politician being, racist, being a bigot, other articles that there's potential for a general strike. There's another article about how the cost of living is going up. So clearly issues that we are not just facing in the U.S. These are like global issues where the global corporations that exist are kind of price gouging everybody. And the governments that are, the puppets of these corporations aren't doing anything to actually help the people. And one of the only things the people can do is a general strike, which we are seeing happen in France. A general strike and protesting BlackRock, which is one of the major investors in the majority of companies. Cut to then the team in the press conference room, right, where Ted and Coach Beard are introducing them. They have a presentation to introduce them to Total Football, kind of giving a brief history on Total Football, where it came from, how it became a thing, right? You have Beard giving Ted credit for this idea, for Ted having his barbecue sauce hallucination, right? And then he gives the brief history, the evolution of Total Football, right? And then part of that history includes Jamie Tart, who played at a team where one of the coaches was well known for using this strategy. And of course, they take the opportunity to make fun of Jamie for going on a reality TV show, thus being let go from the team. And Tart has a good sense of humor about it, right? He plays along with it. And Beard says total football is about letting go of your baggage and trusting your intuition. It's like jazz. It's like Motown, baby. It's Monet. It's Mammoth. It's Gaga. It's Beard's mom proudly displaying her vibrator on her bedside table. Right? And he says, we all know football is life. And he looks over at Danny, gives a smile, and Danny, right, gives a big smile. But we all know a beautiful life is total football, right? Encapsulates, gives a final dismount for his presentation of what total football is. And the players applaud his presentation. They're like, yeah, that was great, Coach Beard. But then when they find out that they are going to be implementing total football into their training, into their game plans, then they are not very stoked. They're like, what are you doing to us? And they're even less stoked when they find out that they plan on using total football for their next match. So they only have a week to learn this brand new style of play and have to execute on the next game. So they not only are having to learn something completely new, but are going to be tested. It's going to be tested within a week. And Ted tells them all to hush their butts as they all kind of go out to start their training. Cut back to Keely. She's at her desk at her office, right? Super happy. Barbara comes in and notices the book that Keely got. Keely kind of struggles to not let Barbara know that, she got it from Jack or that she's in a relationship with Jack. She's very careful to not let anything out about that. And Barbara's jealous that Keely was gifted the book, right? And the scene also sets up the conflict of interest, really, with Keely and Jack, the potential conflict of interest, especially the fact that Barbara is kind of a kiss ass and, doesn't really like Keely. So that could also cause issue with, maybe the business not working out the way it wanted. There's definitely a lot of focus on Keely's business as she's a great character, but considering the show is about Ted Lasso and the team, there's a lot involved with Keely in this business and the drama that's been happening with her business. Regardless, I enjoy it. Just kind of interesting how it's like this offshoot story that kind of, probably because she's such a popular character. Anyway, cut to Nate is in his office. And he gets a text from his mom about his sister's birthday being tomorrow. And I had no idea he had a sister, but she's got a birthday tomorrow. And he suggests going to their favorite restaurant. Because, of course, now the owner knows who Nate is, right? And potentially, he wants to impress also, maybe introduce his family to Jade, who he likes as well. So it's definitely a spot that's important to Nate, as he mentioned when he was on his date with the supermodel who didn't care at all about Nate or the sentimental reasons he likes that restaurant. But she tells him that she's going to be cooking, and reminds him not to be late. And then Nate gives his phone I don't want to say the word you say because I don't want all of my devices to go off when I say the name that you use to communicate with your Apple devices. But Nate says the name that you use to communicate with your Apple devices to set his appointment, right, to schedule the appointment for the dinner. And then he also asked this name to communicate with Apple devices, how to tell if a girl likes you, right? Which seems like something that somebody would have done when that ability first came to the iPhone like a decade ago, right? When people are asking their phone all kinds of questions like what to do with the dead body, all these kinds of wacky things. But we find out pretty early that those virtual assistants that are part of your smartphone aren't very intelligent. Versus what they will probably be any day now, where they implement AI, and then you can just have all-out conversations with your phone in a way that was kind of almost the hope when those services first came to smartphones. that you would be able to. It would be more functional as like a conversation, right? But anyway, it is a running gag throughout this of Nate asking people how to tell if a girl likes you, and in the same way, he gets the answer of you don't. It's you can't. Cut to Beard and Ted are at the pub having some beer, and Beard is worried about his girlfriend. She's dropping hints about, she's got magazines on the table, all these things. Ted thinks that she's dropping hints about marriage, but Beard means that she's dropping hints about pegging, right? So completely different. Still requires some commitment, pegging, but that's what Beard is more concerned with. And then you have May, the owner, bartender. She comes over, delivers the beer, and she's bummed because the bar is dead because the team is losing, right? And you have the 3 fans that, Beard went and hung out with. They come over and tell Ted that they're done being nice and start talking shit, right? And Ted's like, okay, how about I invite you to practice? And Beard questions Ted's decision to allow the fans in, especially since they're practicing this new thing, total football. The players have no idea. That's just like adding more pressure. Beard's questioning it, but Ted seems pretty confident. It's like it's their team. They should be able to see it, watch us practice, right? Which, sure. Cut to the next day. Again, you have businesses opening up again. You have Nate stopping by the restaurant, kind of peeks in through the window again. And like as he's looking through the window, popping out of the door is the manager. Spooks Nate, right? Obviously the manager's stoked to see Nate, right? And it seems like the manager loves Nate only because Nate is winning, right? And the manager is winning bets. Like he's placing bets on Nate's team because Nate keeps winning. He keeps winning bets, so he loves Nate. So I would imagine that's setting up another thing to make my prediction come true of Nate going back to AFC Richmond, that there's going to be a situation, especially as we see Nate change in this episode, and he becomes far more sympathetic in this episode than he has been since the beginning of season 2. I think there's going to be a situation where Nate's going to lose his edge as a coach. Rupert isn't going to want him anymore as Rupert discards. As we've already seen, Rupert kind of waffle back and forth on even letting Nate refer to him with his first name. So I think it won't take much for Rupert to change his mind on Nate. And I think that's also going to be a situation that's going to keep Nate from getting good service at this restaurant that he likes. But Nate finds out that Jade is off for the day, and Nate gets, in the very awkward Nate way, asking the manager to tell her that he said hi, and then he's like, no, don't say hi. But then if she asks about me, then say something, and the manager's like, why would she ask about you? Like a very, very awkward, typical Nate before he started spitting on himself in the mirror. And it's like his lovable, awkward self, too, right? That's what this episode is really bringing back. It brings back the Nate that I think everybody fell in love with before he went to the dark side. And aside from the first episode, we really haven't seen much of his asshole side. And I think that's on purpose. I think especially knowing kind of the response to Nate Breaking Bad in the last season, I think this season they are doing a good job at reminding you who Nate is and getting you back in love with this lovable character in order for the season to end with him back at AFC Richmond, right? Because if they don't do their due diligence at making the fans of the show like Nate again, then when he goes back to Richmond, it's not going to land. I think it's not going to have that redemption that I think is what they are planning to do. Cut to practice, and Ted blaming Beard for inviting the fans when Roy asks, which of course, that's what Beard's there for. Ted hands training over to Roy because they're going to be working on getting fit, right? And Roy just makes them run, right? And Roy yelling whistle because, of course, he had his issues with the whistle before. And one of the fans that's there, one of the 3 fans that's there, just assumes he doesn't have a whistle because he's allergic to metal. Which I think the reality was, if I remember correctly, it's just because he was blowing it too much. So they took it away from him so he just wouldn't be blowing it all the time. Cut to Jack showing up to Keely's office and goes in to kiss Keely, and Keely stops her and then goes to turn on the privacy glass so the other people in the office don't see this. Right, and then Keely's like goes back and forth because he's like, oh wait, should I off or on or off, on or off or on, right? And then finally Jack grabs the remote and turns it on. And everybody, because of seeing this, like, we get the view from where everybody else is at their desks and seeing how the glass is turning on and off and seeing like just very drawing a lot of attention to this moment that Keely intended on not drawing any attention to. So obviously hilarious. So they're all just kind of staring at this craziness happening. Keely, she mentions she's not used to hiding things. She's used to her relationships being out in the open. And because of the potential conflict of interest, she, doesn't feel comfortable with everybody knowing. But Jack says that she's okay with everybody knowing. Plus she says that she's like so rich that she can get away with murder. And then she compares herself when Keely's like, oh yeah, how, like, who else? Tell me. And he's like, she mentions that like everybody Epstein knew, which is kind of an weird reference to make to like establish how wealthy somebody is. Let's take a quick break from this episode because I want to talk about, are you looking for the perfect gift for that art lover in your life? Look no further than InspiredDisorder.com. Our gift cards can be used to purchase original artwork from The Many Faces, a collection of over 2,000 original abstract ink portraits. These one-of-a-kind pieces make for a truly unique and meaningful gift. But that's not all. Our gift cards can also be used to purchase high-quality prints and t-shirts featuring these amazing paintings. Plus, if the recipient is a fan of The Ray Taylor Show, they can use the gift card to purchase merchandise from the show as well. So why wait? Head on over to InspiredDisorder.com and purchase a gift card today. Your loved one will be sure to appreciate the thought and creativity behind such a unique gift. Thank you for considering InspiredDisorder.com for all of your gift needs. And now, back to the show. Jack goes out to the main office place there and, gets everybody's attention, and she tells everybody that she is in a relationship with Keely, right? And Jack makes a point to say that she's not crazy. Another red flag. And she asks if Keely's not crazy. Make sure Keely's not crazy, right? So, because maybe Jack, because she's so jealous, maybe she calls her past partners crazy for how they reacted to her being super jealous, right? I don't know. That's the second red flag as far as I'm considered. When Jack just out of nowhere makes a point to say that she's not crazy and then to clarify that Keely's not crazy, right? And you see Barbara giving Keely kind of a look of disapproval, right? Because that's Barbara. She doesn't really like Keely, right? And I have a feeling Jack is going to prove to be both crazy and super jealous, right? Either way, she's dropping a lot of red flags. Back to training. And Jamie is leading the pack because he's clearly in the best shape. He's way ahead of everybody. Everybody else is exhausted as they're running back and forth across the pitch. And then you have players starting to puke. And Ted says that the training's done, but now they do the scrimmage. And everybody's like just dead, right? Because they're exhausted. Then cut to Rebecca and Keely out to dinner. And Rebecca telling Keely about her mystery man that she met in Amsterdam. And despite it being magical, she wishes they had hooked up, right? she had a great time, but she's like, I wish we had done some more. And Keely apologized for spending all of her time with Jack, right? And Rebecca, asks her how things are going, right? She's, they're great friends. This is a great friendship. And Keely mentions the gifts and that she told everyone at work that they were together. And Rebecca says that Jack is love bombing her, right? And she warns her that Rupert did the same thing at the beginning of their relationship, right? And she reminds her that shiny things can tarnish, right? Just because all these gifts she's giving, like all these things, it seems like really nice and all this stuff, it can go bad, right? And Rebecca tells her to be aware of the red flags, right? And then, of course, we already heard the whole thing about her being super jealous and making sure to mention she was crazy. But then Keely mentions, after Rebecca's like, look out for the red flags, Keely mentions, right, love blindness, and that some people see red flags as massive green flags, right? Which I think that's why people do love bombing, because it works for some people. And it's clearly potentially working on Keely, although we see her kind of try to right the ship as far as that's concerned. And Rebecca asks for the bill, and they find out that Jack had already paid for the bill. So then Rebecca decides to order a bunch of wine, order some dessert. She orders an extra bottle of wine for the waitress as well, right? Obviously, she knows Jack is like, and Jack said she's wealthy, and she's in the as wealthy as the people that hung out with Epstein, which I don't like. That is such like it's not the group you want to associate with, I would imagine. But Rebecca orders all this extra stuff, is like stoked about that. And then she does the heart exploding, because, again, Jack paying for this meal is part of the love bomb. And she wants, Keely to realize that. Cut to then Nate at his family's dinner. And Nate made one of his, right, in the first season, when Ted shows up to AFC Richmond and he wants to know what the players' gripes are, and he wants to make like an anonymous kind of a suggestion box. Nate makes a decorative suggestion box that is clearly something Nate is into, these decorative boxes. And again, Nate made one of these fancy boxes that kind of looks like a birthday cake, but then when you open it up, it's almost like a pop-up book, right? And it's a birthday thing for his sister. And we find out that his sister is a lawyer, and she asks if he's getting girls now that he's like the major, coach guy. Like, are you drowning in it? And his dad decides to take the granddaughter when he realizes what they're going to be. Like, he asks Nate's sister's asking how much pussy he's getting. The dad's like, oh, I think this is a great opportunity for us to take the granddaughter to go to get some ice cream. So he leaves with, I assume, the father of the granddaughter, Nate's sister's husband, the brother-in-law of Nate, I guess. So they go to get some ice cream. And Nate opens up about liking Jade and not being sure how she feels about him. He asks his mom and his sister how to tell if a girl likes you, and they both answer the same as the thing that is a feature on Apple products that I don't want to say the name. And they answer the same way and say you can't. And his sister tells him to go ask her out. Just like, go ask her out. That's how you know. You know is if they turn you down. You can't just like mind meld. I mean, sometimes you can really tell if you're vibing, but just ask them out, right? And Nate, too nervous, right? He's only learned how to be confident in one specific way, in a very intimidating kind of like demeaning way, and it's not going to work in this situation. And when they ask what's the worst that can happen, Nate's like, well, then she could laugh and then like say no, and then it would feel really comfortable every time I went back to my favorite restaurant, this restaurant, right? And the next family meal, right? There, when they go to that restaurant, which is also his parents' favorite restaurant, when they go the next time, he's going to have to sit outside like some transient, right? So they say that he's just like his dad. Nate is just like his dad. And then she tells her mom to show him the map. Like, what is this map thing, right? I have no idea why this map, why is it a big secret? And you see what the map, right? It's this map that his dad made for his mom before. This is how he asked her out. He made this map. And it's this map, and on the map is 4 dots, right? Both dots, 2 sets of dots connected, and it's comparing the distance they were at when they were both born, how far away they were with the mileage. Then it's like the distance apart they were growing up, and then how when they both went to the same college, the distance they were between dorm rooms. And he wants to ask her if she's willing to be closer, be like a foot away on their date, right? And then they encourage Nate to ask this girl out. But do it in your own way. Be true to yourself, right? Don't use Rebecca, which they don't know about this thing where he spits on himself in the mirror to amp himself up, right? They're encouraging him, like, listen, your dad did it. You guys are the same. Find your way, right? Cut to the next morning. Everything's opening up again. Right, we see Sam showing up to his restaurant where everybody's watching the news broadcast of the refugees being turned away. And Sam decides to post a tweet. And his tweet said, "Profoundly disturbed by the situation at the Portsmouth Harbor. I hope Brenda Barrett _UK will reconsider her position and help make Britain better than it is." And the chef tries to make him add bitch to the end of it, right? To say to help make Britain better than this bitch is what he wants him to change it to, but he decides against it, right? Then cut to Nate showing up to the restaurant, walks in and kind of introduces himself again. Jade is there and like, "Oh, Nate." She's like, "Oh yeah, Nate, I know you." And he stumbles, like he's going to ask her, but he stumbles and then freezes when he starts to ask her, then excuses himself, which I think he's going to go to the bathroom and spit on himself. But he goes into the bathroom, he stares at himself in the mirror, which he does usually before he spits on himself, but this time he doesn't. He changes his mind, he gets like a smile on his face, changes his mind, and walks out. Massive smile on his face, right? Passes the hostess stand and says he's going to need some time, he needs to go get something really fast. Right, which turns out to be not really fast. But he leaves, got a smile while he walks past before he even gets out, he accidentally tries to push the pull side of the door. So he walks into the door again. Funny. And then he gets out, walks by the window, got a huge smile on his face as he's walking past the window. And Jade just kind of looks confused at everything that just happened. And she goes back to cleaning her menus. Cut to Roy calls the team in after their run, and in the stands there's even more fans now watching this day, so it's caught on, and more fans are watching them train. And Ted tells the team that they're going to work on versatility and being aware of what your teammates need, and they're going to swap positions. Isaac and Danny are switching. And they end up Isaac and Danny start doing impersonations of each other, which is so great, right? Seeing Danny be Isaac and Isaac be Danny. 2 people that have very different mentalities, by the way, which just makes the fact they're doing impressions of each other fun. Then you have Roy passing out these cards that have players' names, and the name is going to be the person you're swapping with, right? And Jamie's card just says Jamie, so he's not allowed to swap. He is just being himself. And even the fans are getting into this swapping thing. And you see the 3 friends, the guy who is super negative, talking shit, just becomes very supportive, and then the guy, the big black dude, who's usually positive, tries to be angry, and he's like, I don't really like that. And then you have Coach Beard swapping with Will, the kit man, right? So, and he's like doing the water thing, which, you know, they're all getting into the swapping. And Ted trying to get Isaac to get out of his box, right? Trying to think out of the box. And part of that is he's got to take this corner kick, which he's never done. And when he kicks it, Isaac kicks this ball, and it flies way the wrong direction, ends up smashing into the window of Rebecca's office, where Higgins is sitting on the couch about to take a sip of tea when the ball just smashes in the window, cracks the window, thus making Higgins spill his tea all over himself, which is hot tea, and he's freaking out, right? And everybody's just kind of frozen and a bit shocked about how completely off Isaac was with his kick. Cut to after practice, where Sam gets a text from his chef and sends him a link to a tweet. The politician replied to Sam's text saying footballers should leave the politics to us and just shut up and dribble, right? It's just exactly what Republicans in the U.S. say to all athletes that try to get political, like LeBron, who supported the Black Lives Matter protests, or Kaepernick, who kneeled during the national anthem, right? They are so fast to tell people to stay in their lane, right? And even people that aren't politicians, like, just because the sheep that follow the Republicans just regurgitate everything that they see on Fox News, it's hilarious when just regular people tell people to stay in their lane. Meanwhile, them telling the person to stay in their lane is literally them going out of their lane to criticize somebody. It's almost as if somebody has opinions on what's happening in a state that they don't live in, and somebody saying you shouldn't have an opinion about something if you don't actually live there. Like, your opinion is irrelevant if you don't live there. And yet, like, they have no problem criticizing me despite them not being. It's just like this double standard that they don't seem to understand, that they are doing the thing. It's like people complaining about protesters. It's like, what do you think protests are? They're people getting together to complain, and you're just complaining about them complaining. You want to have the power to complain. You don't want them to have the power to complain, right? Either way, the whole stay in your lane crowd, it's just frustrating. And he replies to Simi's text with 3 thumbs down, and she corrects him with 3 middle fingers, right? Because she's far more aggressive than Sam is especially when it comes to this. Then you have Trent cut to Trent asking Ted if completely changing everything at this stage in the season, when the team is clearly having issues grasping this new style, and if Ted thinks it's still a good idea. And Ted says, it's like taking a hike with Robert Frost. It could go either way. And Robert Frost, his obviously famous poem, 2 roads diverge in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could. There where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden back. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that was made all the difference. Man, I brutalize that. I try, right? I make the effort. That's the thing. You got to try. It's okay if you fail. Failing is part of trying. And you never succeed unless you try. So I did my best, people. Cut to Trent looking over to Beard for some kind of like, are you sure that's a good idea? And when he looks over to Beard, we see that it's actually Will, the kit guy, with like electrical tape on his face to look like Beard. Because, of course, they swapped. Beard is Will and Will is Beard. And then, of course, Beard comes in and kicks Will out. Cut to another morning, and people are opening their shops again. You have Jade at the restaurant, right? She looks around. She doesn't see Nathan as she expects to. And she goes outside to look around. So not only did he not go back that day, that the next morning he doesn't show back, which apparently he stops by and says hi on his way to work. Right? So what I assume is that he's making something like his dad's map to ask her instead of using his words. And I assumed it would be his decorative box because that's what he does. That's what he's good at. Cut to Keely showing up to work with a massive smile on her face and giddy. And she's shocked to find her office full of flowers. Another love bomb. Cut to another day at practice, and they're training for awareness. And now what your teammates are doing, the idea is to know what your teammates are doing at all time, right? They're all going to be connected at the dick by red string. It's the strings that bind us by the dicks. And there's even more fans in the stands. All the team players are tangled up. So like each two players is tied to each other with a string from dick to dick, right? Very precarious situation, right? But also something that's, going to keep them on their toes, as it were, to make sure that they don't get too far away from their paired up person. And all the players are tangled up, and Roy loves this. He is waiting for the carnage to happen. Right, and you see players falling down all over the place in pain as they're tugging on their junk, right? Keep drifting too far apart. You have Danny, being as close as possible to his partner, right, because he's super scared. And then you have one of the fans gets a string and asks if any of his friends want to, participate as well. Of course, neither of them do. And then he even asks the other people in the stands, and nobody wants to. And then everybody stops when Jamie's partner gets way too far away and rips the string off. Danny goes over, scared, to see what happened. As Tart checks on his dick, right? He looks in his shorts, his hands trembling because he's afraid to what happened. And you see Roy have this massive smile on his face. While everybody else is just frozen and worried. Roy's got this evil smile on his face, hoping for the worst. But thankfully, Tart's dick is okay, right? Everybody's relieved except for Roy, who now has a disappointed look on his face. And then Ted runs out on the field to bring everybody in, and he accidentally, while running out of the field, runs into a string that's between two people, thus making those two people double over in pain. I think it was Isaac and another one of the players. So after practice, you see Will with one of those little grabby things picking up all the string in the locker room. And then cut to Sam getting another reply from the politician, Brenda Barrett, on Twitter. And this is a day later. Very Trump-like. But this time she says, Sam should worry less about the safety of our nation and worry more about being a mediocre player on a mediocre team. So the Sam replies, I would rather be a mediocre footballer than a world-class bigot. And he smiles as he hits send, which is yes, Sam. Simi has influenced Sam. And cut to Nate, who is decorating a box, as I predicted. It's another pop-up style box with a cutout of him holding flowers and Jade, right, with a message asking her out. And it's on the top of it, very large decorative bow. The whole thing is it's a beautiful thing that Nate is doing. Cut to the next morning, Keely meeting Jack outside of that same coffee shop they were at just a few days before. And Jack has another gift, but before she's able to give it to her, Keely says she doesn't want it, right? She just wants to hang out. And Jack says that she's been coming on a little too strong. She realizes that she'll back off just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. And then you have a waiter bring over a croissant, and that's what she got for Keely. It wasn't anything, it was just a croissant, right? Although when Keely takes a bite of it, she bites into and finds a ring inside of the croissant. And Jack's like, okay, that was the last one, I swear. And Keely hands the ring back. And the whole time, anytime somebody does that type of thing, all I can think of is somebody cracking a tooth, breaking a tooth, chipping a tooth, or even swallowing it, right? Like, I don't know, hiding a ring or hiding a gift in food, just especially something that's hard, I don't know. Just, it seems like a bad idea. Like, it's this, like, I can understand the, like, on paper, it being a fun, romantic, whatever, hiding a ring in a croissant. But the reality of it is somebody's could potentially break a tooth on that thing. Not that they don't have tons of money to get it fixed, but still. Regardless, let's take a quick break from this episode to talk about, are you a fan of art, movies, and all things entertainment? Then you need to check out youtube.com/inspireddisorder. Our page is jam-packed with all kinds of great content, including making of videos of the many faces, an ongoing art series of abstract ink paintings. But that's not all. We also feature daily episodes from The Ray Taylor Show, a podcast that brings you movie reviews, TV show reviews, episode recaps, opinions on news and entertainment, and much more. There's also a weekly diary and top 5 movie rankings of a variety of categories. And if that wasn't enough, we've also got how-to videos covering all kinds of topics. So why wait? Head on over to youtube.com/inspireddisorder and start exploring the amazing content we have to offer. And now, back to the show. Cut to Jade sweeping up the entrance to the restaurant. And she sees Nate across the street with the box, and she smiles, she waves, and as he goes to cross the street, he trips, throwing the box. The box flies into the road, and of course, a truck runs over the box, right? So Nate just walks over to Jade anyway and just asks her out. Just plainly asks her out. And she says yes. Right, then she asks if there was anything alive in that box, and after he says no, she acts like she doesn't really believe him. She's like, okay, if you say so. But kind of, she's kind of a weird chick, which I think matches perfectly with Nate. Nate's a weird dude. She's a weird chick. But, you know, they're two, like, oddly shaped puzzle pieces that just happen to fit together. Cut to Sam showing up to his restaurant only to find it has been broken into. Glass door shattered. Everything inside is broken. The mirrors are broken. Furniture's busted. The sign is busted. Right? And you see the chef sitting down inside. Right? And on the wall, it's spray painted, shut up and dribble. Right? Because that's how things work. You have these hateful bigot politicians, you know, spread hate, thus encouraging their small-minded sheep to go act out and follow the orders of the politician that they agree with their hate, right? And what I thought Sam should do is record a video of the damage, right, including what was written on the wall, and send it to that politician, thanking them for inspiring other bigots to spread their hate, right? Like, look at what your people did. Like, this is the people that believe and vote for you. This is how they act. This is the lack of maturity. This is the violent nature at which these people act because they're so fragile. They're so fragile with their hate, right? Or take that video, send it to Keely, or tag, you know, send the tweet to Keely because she's PR. She could blow that up. She has connections. And, you know, conservative people, conservative politicians, seemingly, doesn't matter what country you're in, they're all cut from the same cloth. It's just kind of sad. Right? It's almost as if the UK, in many ways, started and spread white supremacy all over the world. Right? So it's not that surprising. Cut to Trent taking a sip from his rainbow mug that says, "Let the good times roll." And he's writing down in his notebook the 4 keys that Ted mentioned earlier in reference to total football. The first is conditioning, which, Roy made them run till they puked. Second was versatility, swapping positions. 3, awareness. Jamie almost lost his dick. And the fourth one, which Ted didn't mention, so Trent just writes a question mark next to it. Cut to Will walking through the locker room, right, collecting water bottles. And you see the team, like, effortlessly passing a water bottle around to each other, just like not on purpose trying to make it cool, right? Like, it's not like they just, like, it's just showing, this scene shows that the team is like, they are picking up what Ted is laying down. They have this kind of communication and awareness between them that is being illustrated in how this bottle of water is being passed around and then put into the crate as is almost effortlessly as Will is walking through the locker room. And you have Roy suggesting the next time they do the red string drill that they should tie multiple guys to a single dick, right? Multiple dicks to a single dick, and he's got, like, on the magnet board, he's got, like, the magnet in the center, and then he's got, like, 5 other strings connected to 5 other magnets. And Ted's like, we're not, that was the one-time deal, right? We're not doing that again. This is a one shot. And then Trent comes in and asks Ted what number 4 was, and Ted says that he doesn't know, right? He's like, I don't know. Well, and then, they throw out their thoughts and their guesses, but no answer, really. Then you have Sam barging into the locker room, right, pissed off, walks through Isaac, kind of checks Isaac almost to ask him what the fuck is wrong with him, right? Sam pissed off at the world being full of shitty people, and now he has to kick a little ball around for them, right? Sam is going off about his only value in life is that he does well playing this game, and then when he doesn't do well, he's going to just be shipped off, and then everybody will be done with him, right? Just at that moment, Sam's dad comes in, and Sam starts to cry, runs over to his dad. Big dude. Like, Sam's dad, he's got, like, he's a giant man, but has, like, a very, like, happy, jolly face, and, like, just the most huggable giant black man I have ever seen. Sam runs over, and his dad says it's okay, right? Later, you see them sitting alone in the gym, and his dad wants to see the restaurant, but Sam doesn't want him to see, like, what it looks like in its current form. And then his dad asks how long it would take for him to get back, and Sam's like, I don't even know if that's what I'm going to do. And Dad suggests, you should do it. Do it for yourself, right? And do it for your friend Simi, and do it for the people who want a taste of home while they're away, right? This is what you made the restaurant for people that want that connection to their home. And his dad tells him to follow his heart, right? Anger will only weaken you. And then he suggests the best way to piss off the ones who did it is to just forgive them, right? Big whoop. Big whoop. Big whoop. Don't even worry about it, right? Don't fight back. Fight forward. And Sam asks if he should invest in security cameras. Dad's like, oh, yeah. Like, he laughs, says yeah, and invest in a gate too, right? And he hopes that he has insurance, which, of course, like, his mom would kill him if he didn't. But, of course, Sam does. Then Ted walks in, and he lets Sam know that, if he wants to take practice off, he's okay. And Sam's dad's like, no, you got to get out there. And so Sam goes to get changed. Cut to the next day. It is game day, and everyone is getting the stadium open now. We're not just seeing people in the town opening their businesses. We're seeing the stadium get prepped to fill the stands full of people, right? You have all the players getting ready. You have Rebecca telling Keely about Rupert again, about how Rupert bought her so many flowers that the florist was able to buy a castle. And Keely, tells her that she's, taking Jack out tonight. She's taking Jack out So, and you see Higgins showing up with Sam's dad, and his dad is, like I said, a very massive dude. And he tells Rebecca Sam has told him all about her, and there's like she's very nervous. She's like, oh, cool, right? And there's a very long pause where, like, in that moment, I thought that in that moment his dad realized who she was, but come to find out that he already knew, and he was just trying to make everybody else feel uncomfortable, which worked. And Keeley noticed the whole the realizations that were going on and lets out a big cheer for the Greyhounds, right? Shifting the focus away from that uncomfortable situation. Then cut to Richmond. They're playing absolutely confused, right? Running into each other. Arsenal's up 3-0, right? Cut to the pub where a patron leaves and May's just pissed off, right? And she says if they get relegated again, she's going to have to go back to filling the hot dogs with cardboard. And then the three fans now, because they've done their swap, the three fans are all optimistic and hopeful, right? Which is, fun. They're like, oh, let's see what happens. They have potential. Cut to halftime. The players are trying to work out. They're in the locker room. Players are trying to work out what they need to change. We have Colin suggesting to Jamie to, stretch out the defense. Isaac suggests scoring some fucking goals. Beard and Roy are trying to tell Ted that they should just go back to their 4-4-5 setup, and Ted starts to tell the team about how he decided to express himself with his facial hair, right? Like, we need to stick with this, right? Maybe it's just like it's the whole metaphor with his facial hair, right? He didn't go with a beard, right? That's how Ted expressed himself, through his facial hair. And he didn't go with the beard because he didn't want to be look like him and Coach Beard would be look like some ZZ Top cover band, to which Roy says the band would be called Sharp Dressed Men, pun number 1 for Roy, and that Ted was inspired by the comics of the Blue Collar Comedy Tour. Larry the Cable Guy had a fluffy big goatee, so that is what Ted tried to do, and before Ted walked down the aisle getting married, Beard pulled him aside and told him that he looked like he ate out the Bigfoot's butthole, right? To which Roy said, a.k.a. Ass Squatch, pun number 2 for Roy. And Roy can't help himself. He curses Ted, right? And Ted, of course, is loving that Roy is turning into Ted with the puns. So he follows Beard's advice. So Ted followed Beard's advice and shaved his goatee down to a Foxworthy and just kept the stash, right? And he says that sometimes the best ideas are sitting behind a couple of the wrong ones. And Jamie acts like he has something to say. Ted gives him the floor, and Jamie doesn't want to sound like a prick, right, with what he has to say. And everybody on the team gives him the sign to be a prick, which is the middle finger. So everybody gives him the middle finger, including the coaching staff, and even Trent gives a little, casual finger. And he starts to say that he's not the one doing the wrong thing, that they're actually doing something wrong. And everybody's insulted with him saying that. And Jamie clarifies by saying that they need to stop going to him, and they need to start going through him. Right? And nobody understands. So Jamie goes over to the board, the magnet board with the magnets on it, and suggests that he should be in the center, and he arranges all of the magnets around him, right? And Danny thinks that because Jamie is putting himself below, that he is sacrificing his position to be number 4, right, for the sake of the team. And Ted clarifies that that's not even the 4 position, right? But it's not the point anyway. But they all cheer 4 on 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and they head back out, right? They got this new idea, this new thing, and they go through on the field. They're all passing the ball through Tart, right? So Tart's in the center. They're all passing it to Tart. Tart's passing it to all of them. So constant ball movement. The announcers are saying that he's conducting the team down the field like a symphony, right? And it all clicks in place. Everybody's playing perfectly. It's a beautiful goal. Beard tells Ted that that's it right there. We got it. We figured this out. It's actually coming together. The commentators are also blown away, right? In that moment, I got chills. It's yes, right? Finally, They still end up losing 3-1, but the commentators feel like Richmond showed some promise finally. Right? And as everybody files back into their locker, Trent scrambles his way through the doors, right? Excited to tell Ted that he believes like what he's doing is going to work, right? Trent is finally on board, right? Because of the Ted Lasso way, right? He hasn't switched tactics in a week, right? He's done this over 3 seasons, right? It wasn't what he did in this 1 week. It is what he's been doing over 3 seasons by slowly but surely building a club-wide culture of trust and support through thousands of imperceptible moments, all leading to the inevitable conclusion of total football. And Trent, so like juiced up, like it's gonna work, like he's super giddy, right? After Trent leaves, they look at Roy, who says, what a fucking dork, right? In reference to Ted, and Ted agrees, but he's our dork, right? So cut to Nate sitting at an outdoor table at a different restaurant. He texts his mom asking how he knows if his date is going to stand him up, and of course she replies, you can't. And just then Jade shows up, and she thanks him for coming and asks if he thought that she was going to stand him up. So they have their thing. They have their date. Meanwhile, Keely and Jack sit down at the window table at Nate's favorite restaurant. And Jack Jack accuses Keely of being a love bomber, right? Getting her the fancy table. And then cut to Sam and his dad driving. And the dad says he's proud of the way his team played despite the outcome. And he mentions that he met Rebecca, and he asked if his dad made the thing weird. And, of course, Dad proudly says yes. And then Sam asks if he still wants to see the restaurant, and, of course, he does. So Sam has a smile on his face, and he turns to go drive him to the restaurant. And as they walk up, Sam already apologizing for what it's going to look like. Dad looking around, he's like, oh, this looks nice. It's not bad. Right? And then they see inside the entire team cleaning up. And I, watching this, am immediately crying, right? I had a feeling, right? This, of course, was going to happen. But, still got me. You have Danny angry that they showed up. He ruined the surprise. Oh, you ruined the surprise. Which I, love Danny as well as I'm crying. Oh, this is so sweet. Oh, Danny. It doesn't matter, Danny, right? You have Sam introducing Simi to his dad, right? She calls him Mr. Obasanya, and he tells her to insist that she call him by his first name, Ola. And just then you see the sign come back to life, working again. They fixed his sign, and that is the name of the restaurant, Ola. So you have Ola, big lit up letters on the sign. And that's the moment where his dad realizes that Sam named his restaurant after him, right? So very touching moment there too. And Simi says that she'll get the mirrors are still broken. She's like, I'll call Monday and get the mirrors broken. And Sam should just leave them as a reminder that everything doesn't have to be perfect. And that's when his dad says, Ola says, the same thing that Simi said earlier. If the food is good, no one will care about the mirrors being broken, right? And then Sam's dad insists on cooking, and Simi and Sam follow him, chanting, yes, chef, right, as they follow him into the kitchen. And then you see the team enjoying their food, enjoying their drinks, having a great night, celebrating the restaurant coming back to life, while Sam and Simi and Ola are in the kitchen cooking food, dancing, having a good time, and it's just the perfect end to a great episode. I absolutely love this show, right? Sam and Simi definitely seem like an eventuality, right? Perfect fit. I also love Sam's dad, like a giant man, but it just radiates happiness. And I love how the team came together, helped Sam, even through, even though it was totally predictable. Still love seeing it. Jack definitely seems to give off red flags. But also the way this episode ended kind of made me feel like maybe she won't, but who knows, right? You have Nate didn't resort to spitting on himself in the mirror. Instead, he just learned how to be himself, right? Using his fancy boxes. Even though the box was destroyed, he was able to just finally be comfortable being himself and asking her out. So my predictions with Nate and what happens with him still stand. He's going to have the redemption, and somehow he's going to be back at Richmond. He's already far more sympathetic. None of his like asshole energy was present at all in this episode. And as far as Richmond, Jamie, definitely the best player on the team, and he figured out how to make total football work for the team. So despite not only getting one goal in their game, they are definitely, I think this is the upswing, right? This was the moment the pendulum shifted from going down to going back up. And I share Trent's excitement. I'm excited to see how it all comes together. And not much from Rebecca or Higgins in this episode necessarily. Higgins got drenched in hot tea. Rebecca kind of warning Keely about the red flags that she's noticing, or at least the comparisons to Rupert. And there's only 5 episodes left in the series, the entire series, and then it's done. So I still believe that both Nate and Keely will be back at Richmond with the trophy. I think the prophecy of Ted's son will come true, and everybody will be back with the trophy. But the next episode, Season 3, Episode 8, we'll never have Paris. While watching Henry, so Henry's back, the prophet himself. While watching Henry, Ted fights the urge to spiral when Michelle and Dr. Jacob go on a romantic trip. An online leak has massive implications for Keely. Will this be the episode where Keely goes back to Richmond? Could be. Like, if whatever this leak is, maybe it's her relationship with Jack. Who knows? But maybe this will be the turning point that sends Keely back to Richmond. Either way, that is a wrap for another incredible episode of the Ted Lasso Recap Podcast. Y'all have been tuning in, and I couldn't be more grateful. If you're loving what I'm doing here, please consider subscribing and leaving me a review. I want to make sure I'm hitting the bullseye every time I step up to the mic. Now, I know you all have opinions, and I want to hear them, so reach out on social media at Ray Taylor Show on IG, TikTok, and Twitter, and let me know what you're thinking about what's going to happen with this season. I want to know. I promise to read every message with the same enthusiasm as Ted coaching his team to victory. And finally, I can't wait to get back with y'all next week for another deep dive into the world of Ted Lasso. So until then, stay curious, stay kind, and stay gold, folks. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.